60 points. Look at the Boston players mobbing.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
51 for Jayson Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
The Boston Celtics are officially heading to the NBA Finals. You're listening to the Big Three NBA podcast with Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn, and Kwani Lewis. Guys, they swept the Indiana Pacers. Let's just recap the series overall. What do you think was the biggest takeaway as they head to the NBA Finals?
They made it. And they made it in almost no significant amount of time relative to the rest of the NBA. I mean, to go through, the multiple series that they've gone through, 3 series, and to only lose 2 games, it's very impressive. They didn't, and I think the scary part for most of the NBA at this point is that the Celtics have been able to win, and you really don't feel as though they played one of their best games. You don't feel as though you're getting that Celtics team that smashed teams by like 50 points in the regular season. You feel like you're getting a good version of the Celtics, but you haven't really seen the good version of the Celtics, which again, for them, it's perfect because you want to be trending in the right direction as far as how you're playing, and that's exactly what they're doing. You don't want to peak too soon. And the way that they're playing, clearly they've got room to get better, room to grow, and yet they're still finding ways to manufacture victories along the way. And it says a lot about this team, says a lot about Joe Mazzulla and that coaching staff, and they are exactly where you'd want to be at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think it's an example that they have learned from their past failures and the shortcomings and some of the bad things that have happened over the last playoff years, going 12-2. And as I recall, keep repeating that great 08 team that everybody said was the greatest, one of the great. They went 16-10 in the playoffs. By the time they got to the finals, they had already lost 8 times. They were 12-8 entering the NBA Finals. The Celtics are 12-2. So this year, Celtics 12-2. Now, obviously, the competition was better. They faced some great teams. They faced LeBron, all that. So I'm not saying that their team was worse, but I'm just saying, put in perspective, the 08 team, the one that everybody talks about, lost 8 playoff games at this point. So the Celtics are finding ways to win. And they're like, well, Indiana could have been up 3-1. Well, they weren't because they couldn't execute. Just like the Celtics could have been up 3-1 in the finals in that game 4, and they didn't execute. And they didn't execute in the game 6 either, or game 5. What separates the good teams from the great teams is execution down the stretch. And the Celtics, for years, did not have that execution. And now they do. And I think that just says a lot about their growth, the presence of Drew Holiday, the improvement of Jaylen Brown, the playmaking of Jayson Tatum, Derek White. I mean, all those guys, Horford. So I just take away from the first 3 rounds, my fault, 3 rounds, that this team knows how to win. And we'll see how they adjust, because obviously it's going to be the ultimate challenge in the final, whether it's Dallas or Minnesota, likely Dallas. But to me, you can't, if they had smashed all their opponents, everybody would say, well, they smashed them all. So what? They go to competition. They won't know how to execute down the stretch. And then they win close games. Well, you should have blown Indiana out. It was Mr. Halliburton. There's no winning for this team, because look at the other teams. Minnesota's got their its flaws. Dallas looked terrible in their first game 1 against the Clippers. They got blown off the floor. Or lost in game 1 against Oklahoma City. They've had all their flaws too. So the Celtics, got blown out once, that Cleveland game. The Miami game, they were highly competitive. The Miami had that record-breaking 3-point night. But to me, Celtics have handled their business. Now they get more than a week off, chill, practice, reflect. And I think, like Hal Horford pointed out, and I kind of forgot, they won that game in Miami. And I think that I forgot if that was a Friday or Sunday, but it was game 1 was Thursday in San Francisco. They had to basically go home, get their stuff, and then travel the next day to San Francisco for media day. I want to say it was like a Thursday or whatever it was. So they didn't have any time to decompress, get healthy, reflect, relax, nothing. They had to go play the Warriors. This time they got some practice time, try to get Porzingis back. But to me, taking care of your business, TCB. And if you youngsters don't know what that means, that's something me and Sherrod grew up with. TCB. Taking care of your business. Taking care of business. Look at business. Taking care of business.
Yes, sir.
All right. Jaylen Brown named the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Gary, you actually had a vote and voted for Jaylen Brown. I think this one will be less controversial than your Carmelo one, but
wait, well done, Kwani. Well done. Well done.
Wow, you gotta bring that up.
I had to. Every few months we have to bring it up.
That's what you.
That one dude.
Were you too surprised? Because I mean, obviously, Gary, you voted, so you wouldn't be as surprised. But were you, Sherrod, at least surprised that Jaylen won? I'm surprised that as he said he was too. He was like, I don't win, bleep.
A little bit, only because it wasn't that I didn't think he deserved it. I just didn't think he'd get the credit for what he did. I mean, you look at his numbers in those 4 games. He averaged damn near 30 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 51.7% from the field. He did everything for that team in his 4-game sweep, and clearly was the best player overall. Tatum had moments where he was really good and reminded us why he's such a special talent. But in terms of elite consistency, Jaylen Brown was the best player on this team. I mean, Jaylen shot better at least 50% from the field in all 4 games. I don't know if Jaylen has ever had a 4-game stretch in his NBA career where he shot that well from the field over a 4-game period of time. So surprised that he got the credit for it, but not surprised in him deserving it, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with you. Gary, what made you vote for him?
Well, it was close. I mean, I was talking with another reporter in the press box, and we were both going like, well, who are you going to vote for? What's like, this basically came down to who had the better game in game 4 was probably going to get the vote. And then Tatum was playing well, but then Jaylen hit that early 3, because it was 89-82. Remember, they had to, Jaylen had hit that step back 3 off Miles Turner, and during the timeout, they said it was after the shot clock expired, so they took it back. So the Celtics were down 7. And it was like, oh boy, I thought then they were done. Like, damn, they're down 7. They're not gonna make it up. But then Jaylen came right back and hit another 3, making 4 points. And then just his playmaking, that block on Nembhard, and then that drawing in, sucking in the defenders and passing to Derek White in the corner. To me, that was the plays. He won them. He was the reason why they were able to win game 1 with that 3-pointer. Game 2, he came back with a 40-piece. Game 3, he was okay, solid. That was more Tatum game. In game 4, he just made the winning plays. So Tatum, I mean, if he had won, I would have had no problem with it. It was 5-4. But I just felt like Jaylen had just made those decisive winning plays when the game counted to lift the team, because this was a close series, even though it was a sweep, and Jaylen was responsible for essentially 3 of the wins. I mean, if you look at his numbers, which I've done, 29.8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 51% from the field, 37 from the 3-point line. Tatum, 30.3, 10.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 1.3 steals, but 46% from the field and 30.6% for the 3-point line. So Jaylen had more steals, better shooting percentage, better 3-point percentage than Jayson. So, and then I just put, so it's close, but then you put those winning plays, and to me, that was what put him over the top.
Yeah, and that was a separator between those two. The fact that Jaylen made significant impact plays. Tatum is going to get you 25 points in his sleep. He's that damn good. But a lot of the points that he was getting really weren't game-changing, game-altering putting the Celtics over the top type plays. And Jaylen made a lot of those plays and made them at both ends of the floor. And that, when you talk about someone as the MVP, whether it's MVP of a game, of a series, of a league, that's what you have to do. You have to put your imprint on games in winning fashion. And Jaylen did that at just a consistently high level, much more so than Tatum did.
There have been jokes and memes, and people create their own narratives of how Tatum may have felt about not winning, but I imagine this would stoke up a flame in him to want to perform at an even higher level in the finals, right?
Oh, Tatum's going to be Finals MVP.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it right. Tatum's going to be Finals MVP, and he's going to earn it. He's going to have this. He's going to have the stats to back it up. He's going to have the game to be that dude, because he knows that he's supposed to be the face of the franchise. And Robin, his sidekick, showed him up. Jaylen was better. And the thing about it is, there's nothing, if you're Tatum, you can't hate on him for that, because he was better than you.
Yeah.
He was absolutely better than you. So I think Tatum we're going to see the best version of Jayson Tatum in this series. There's no, I have very, very little doubt about that.
Yeah.
Moving.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean,
he's like,
I think Jayson could have won it, but I also think there's inherently Jayson is happy for Jaylen. I think he understands how hard Jaylen works, and Jaylen's been through some, and we can talk about that, the criticism, not making an All-NBA team and the stuff with Stephen A. Smith. That's, really was unnecessary to me. Unnecessary, and people tend to point out a lot of Jaylen's faults. Oh, Jim, he's left hand, he's trash his left hand, this, that, the other. And the dude is a ball player. He's a ball player. He's got he's got a dog in him. And I think there's never been a time in their time together that they blended together so well as they have right now.
And just along those same lines, Gary, the one thing that I think has jumped out in this particular series is Jaylen's leadership. When you see just the conversations that the cameras are panning on to in the locker room after games, you listen to what some of the guys are saying about him. When he was mic'd up for the one game where, he's trying to keep Tatum. Tatum was having a not so great game, and he was saying, "Hey, Big Deuce, we need you to do this, Big Deuce." Little things like that that show his growth as a leader. And I think it was your question in one of the post-game pressers where he talked about having Marcus Smart move on and how he wants to fill that void from a leadership standpoint. It hits a little different when arguably the first or second best player is taking on that role as a leader versus one of your better players, which was the case with Marcus Smart. Jaylen's ability to just take that burden on himself, it has a much more substantive feel about it for these players, because that, he's saying that he's on me and wants accountability, but he is like dropping 40 in a damn playoff game. He is, killing it at both ends of the floor. Maybe I should just kind of step my game up, because he's clearly stepped his game up. We finally figured out how this is going to work. Jaylen has to be, I think, that vocal leader that Jayson Tatum, I just don't think is built to be. And that's not a knock on Tatum. That's just who he is. At the same time, Jaylen is comfortable enough in who he is to go out there and be a dominant player, but still make sure there's room for Tatum to do what he do. It feels as though these two have finally figured out the cheat code for how they can coexist and be incredibly dominant players on the same night, in the same game, and lead this team to where they are now, and that's 4 wins away from Banner 18.
As the NBA and NHL seasons start to wind down, things are just heating up in the WNBA and on the baseball front. There's no better time than now to join Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports team this summer. You can make a Prize Pick lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you're locked in. For me, one of my go-to guys has been Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics, who, when it comes to rebounding, I'm going more almost every time. He was great for me during the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana when he reached double-digit rebounds in 3 of the 4 games. That's what I'm talking about, JT. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. Just download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Gary, you mentioned the Jaylen Brown Stephen A incident. I guess we should talk about it because Stephen A, for those that didn't hear about it, Stephen A cited an anonymous source saying that people don't like Jaylen Brown because he's not marketable and he has a big ego, which I think the three of us would agree that we've never really seen that. I don't know what the source, and Jaylen actually quoted it asking Stephen A to state his source, and then Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons, not Celtics, he gets on Twitter and starts defending Jaylen. So what do you two make of this incident in general? But it just feels like a distraction, to be honest.
Yeah, Gary, you talk to him about it. What do you got?
I feel like how do I put this? I think ever since Jaylen entered the draft, he's a very smart kid. He's a kid who, this is my alma mater. He's a kid from Atlanta that went to Cal. Okay, like that only happened once before with Sharif Abdul-Rahim.
Who went to the same high school as Jaylen.
Yeah, and went from Atlanta to go to UC Berkeley. That just don't happen. Jaylen's a thinker. I think he is just a guy, where guys are going to Cancun and going to all these. He's going to like Africa. He's going to Egypt. He's learning about the pyramids. He's going to Spain. He's learning different cultures. He's learning different philosophies and ways of life. He practices Ramadan. I think he has a lot of things on his mind. When he said he wanted to help the men to bring together and close the wealth disparity gap between blacks and whites in Boston. Like, who says that? How many people say that? Right? I mean, he's got a lot on his mind. He's got the world on his shoulders. And I think that since he's entered the draft, that's rubbed some people the wrong way. Some people like their ball players not all that damn smart. Right? And I just think, and let's be honest, that's how it is. And you talk about if it's a race thing or whatever, but some people like their ball players just to be about ball. I mean, I think that's maybe why a certain quarterback who stood on his knee, stood at the kneel at the anthem, was never got allowed back to the NFL. So I think that has what intimidated certain people. I think if you are looking for someone to be smiling in your face and shaking your hand, Jaylen's not that guy. Jaylen can be intimidating. If you look at him and you want to be buddies with him or whatever, sometimes you got to talk his language, and it's not rap music and it's not, it's not Kendrick against Drake. It's not some of the things that maybe get other guys his age going. And so I understand what the perceptions of him has been over the years. He's a guy who came out of college and did not hire an agent until his first rookie deal. He went without an agent. Why should I pay an agent? I'll just hire somebody pro bono and just to negotiate. This ain't that hard. Like that pisses some people off because he's going against the grain, and Jaylen's been that guy. And so I do think that there's people that probably think negatively of him or think he's a know-it-all or he thinks he's all that or he thinks he's smarter than everybody else or smarter than people. But I didn't understand the concept of bringing that up randomly from a quote-unquote NBA source, which is very vague.
The day before the final game.
And then just, and I said, and I don't think Stephen A feels that way. I think he was trying to add some perspective into the conversation, and it was hurtful because Jaylen, in as much as we can, he's 26 years old, 27 years old. I'm like, when someone says something about you, when you get to a certain age, you don't care. But when they say something about you, 27, you're like, what'd you say? What you talking about? Why you say that about me? What's up with that? We've seen the sensitive athlete. Kevin Durant is mad sensitive. There's grown athletes who are extremely sensitive to what people say about them. So I think it was an unfortunate incident. I know Stephen A has said, hey, I didn't say that about him. I think the world of him, and we continue to talk about him. That was just one thing I brought up. But when you bring up something that someone said anonymously, it's like someone saying, if anybody said about us, yeah, Kwani, someone told me you woo, 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 but I ain't gonna tell you who it is, and I'm not gonna tell you
And I don't feel that way, but I'm just saying this is what
I
they
don't
say.
feel that way. And I'm not gonna tell you the perspective. I'm not gonna tell you if they're close to you. We've all had that. Somebody, someone said woo woo, and you found out who it was. It's like, I don't even talk to that person. Who is
Yeah.
it? Like, I've never, like, I've had 2 conversations with that person, and they're like saying that I'm this. Like, we've never even talked for more than 3 minutes. Like, how are they making a statement about me? So I understand where Jaylen was coming from. And he probably needs to just get over it, because I don't think it's that important. But I think that's a testament to what he feels like throughout his career. People have been, criticizing him, not making All NBA, always being kind of the number 2 guy, the Robin on this team. And I think he respects Jayson. I don't think he blames Jayson at all, but I think he's like, how come I don't get some of that piece of that pie either? I'm a marketable guy. But also, I think if it's like, well, Jaylen, we want you to advertise this product, he's probably like, well, I don't use that. I'm not advertising that. Or how much money you gonna contribute to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Roxbury? And they're like, nothing. Well, we ain't gonna talk about it, because Jaylen was there when they put that Kobe Bryant court. He showed up to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Roxbury a couple of months ago to dedicate the the Kobe Bryant court. The Kobe and Gianna Bryant court.
People were mad about.
Huh?
I said, which some people were mad about because
yeah, so like, we put the Kobe court in Boston.
all right, get over
you gotta be kidding me. So, I think I think he's putting all this together and using it as fuel, using it as motivation. But I also think it's unfortunate, because I think it's unfair to him. Some of the criticism Jason's faced has been unfair this playoffs. And there have to be conversation pieces. There has to be guys that are always going to talk about things. And that's just the society that we're in today, that someone out the blue has got to have a comment. Like, you just got to talk about something, even though you don't know a lot about it. You just got to have your 2 cents. Like, I remember when Sherrod and I grew up, it was like, don't talk about stuff you don't know about, and don't put your 2 cents in. Unless you really, really ready to defend your opinion. Don't just say something to say something. Don't put your 2 cents in like that, especially you don't know what you're talking about. But now everybody with social media, everybody has an opinion. Everybody's an insider. Everybody knows what they're talking about.
You got insiders who haven't even been in arenas, but they
It's like the Chappelle skit where it's like, who wants to hear what Ja Rule thinks? Like, nobody cares. But
it's like one person, this insider, was criticizing the crowd at the TD Garden for Game 2 because it wasn't loud enough. But wasn't at the game. Watched it on TV and said the crowd at TD Garden's got to step up. They was quiet. You know what ESPN does that TNT doesn't? ESPN suppresses the crowd sound, so it doesn't sound as loud. How you gonna criticize a crowd noise, and you weren't at the game?
That's different. Yeah.
Like, you weren't even there, man.
Yeah.
Like, but that's what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. People are
it's a way of trying to be relevant, really.
Not without an apology. No apologies. No, hey, my bad, I wasn't there. It's just like people. Like when people did, like, oh, well, were you at the incident? No, I wasn't. I didn't happen to me, but
my cousin said
I was emotionally scarred by watching it. So I'm filing a lawsuit. Like, you weren't even there, man. Like, where was you at? Well, I wasn't there. I came there later. But you're an expert. Like, no, you're not an expert. So it's just sad that that's how it is. And that's what these young athletes have to deal with. Everybody's an insider. Everybody has a comment. And no one apologizes and says, hey, I didn't know what I was talking about, or I had some bad information, So Jaylen just needs to move on, look forward to the finals, and I think he will.
The NBA Finals have finally arrived and will once again be one of the hottest tickets in sports. You want to be there and not have to mortgage the family home or take a second job to do so, right? Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. That's a huge get when it comes to the NBA Finals, which will start in Boston for games 1 and 2. Those tickets are going to be super pricey, so waiting to the last minute and take advantage of the Game Time app makes a ton of sense. Here in Boston, every season is sporting season, so for me, the Game Time app makes it super easy to find tickets for just about every sport in my area, which is great this time of year when family or friends pop into town at the last minute and you're scrambling for something to do that won't break the bank, like, getting tickets to the NBA Finals. Game Time has you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
And I think in many respects he has. I think one of the things that helps him deal with this type of stuff is the fact that he literally his birth into the NBA was getting booed on draft night. And that is something that, it is something that he has kept with him all these years later. I know because whenever I brought it up, he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember. I'll never forget that." And it's understandable why. He's like many athletes. He's often trying to find that one little extra something that can give you that little added motivation to go out and be the best version of yourself. And Jaylen never has a shortage of opportunities to do that because he has often been second guessed and doubted and criticized for things that just don't really make a lot of sense. Jaylen is one of those players that is very comfortable with those around him being uncomfortable.
Mm.
He's not trying to proclaim, he's not trying to make sure that everyone around him is happy go lucky. That's not who Jaylen Brown is. He's about his business. He is about more than anything else. He's a thinker, and you don't have to agree with all that he's thinking about. But damn it, he is going to put thought into pretty much everything he does. And often, what happens is that when you do that, you actually use this thing we like to call common sense and make decisions. And often that's not what people are going to judge you on. And so that's where the rubber meets the road, where he's making decisions. For example, as Gary pointed out with the rookie salary scale, I never understood why players as rookies get agents because there's a scale
But yeah,
for
you're making
rookies.
yeah.
You literally already know what you're going to get the moment you get drafted.
Mhm.
You know what the max is, you know what the minimum is, and you can just kind of negotiate from there. Your agent, that's just agents, they steal money off their rookie contract. If we're being honest and real, Jaylen gave us thought clearly and realized, why am I going to let this man steal money from me when I can just have the services that they would provide for less money? It's just that's just thinking it makes sense. So Jaylen, to me, I love it when I hear the second guessing and the criticism because I know for a guy that's always looking for that, he doesn't have to look far. And
Mm.
he shows time and time again that he's one of the best players in the NBA. And as I touched on earlier about Jaylen, the thing that impressed me the most during his recent run is just his leadership. It was the one thing that I thought this championship squad absolutely needed someone to really grab the bull by the horns and take control and be that steady presence, that voice on and off the court. And as much as y'all know, I love me some Marcus Smart. That's my dog for life. He wasn't able to elevate the guys around him the way that a Jaylen Brown can. Even though they may have very similar messages and they may have very similar intentions, the fact that Jaylen Brown can go out there and get you 40 and it not really be that big a shock is different than Marcus Smart going out there and get you 40, which I don't think has ever happened. Uh, and that ability to be an elite player, impact difference maker on and off the court, that's what separates him. And frankly, the fact that he's doing it in a way that doesn't align itself with how many people in the media want him to do it. And folks who are looking to market athletes want him to carry himself. It rubs people the wrong way. It makes people wonder if he's just hard to get along with. I mean, and again, we can have a much deeper conversation about just the implicit biases that a lot of folks have towards Jaylen Brown, based upon how they perceive athletes, particularly black athletes, are supposed to be, and how you're supposed to act, and how you're supposed to just fall in line because you should be thankful that you got this job making 300 million or 285, whatever number you want to use. The bottom line is this: Jaylen is an individual, and he is an uncompromising individual. He does not try to move at the beat that you set. He moves at the beat that moves him. And sometimes that rhythm is not one that most people can understand, comprehend, or embrace. And I personally like that about him. There's some decisions that he makes that I don't agree with, but I respect the fact that the decisions he does make are well thought out. And that to me ultimately makes for a better decision in the long run.
So looking ahead to the NBA Finals, we still don't know exactly who the Celtics will be playing, but they'll most likely be playing Dallas, which would be interesting because then we get the Kyrie Irving Boston
Oh, it's
Celtics.
already started.
Juicy already in itself. But one person that hasn't played since the April 29th game, which was against Miami, is Kristaps Porzingis. So it's not lost upon any of us that the Celtics have been able to get this far without one of their stars. So if he's not ready for the NBA Finals, which would start on June 6th, what is your level of concern that he might not even play for the rest of the season, really?
I would be a little concerned, because he has had, and I mean, there was this period of time where they said, there were reports that he might be able to play in the Indiana series, and obviously after they went up 3-0, you pretty much knew he wasn't going to play in Game 4. If he's not able to go now that he's had an additional week and some change to get his body right, and all they've been saying all along is that, this is precautionary, this is precautionary. We have moved beyond precautionary because you are at the point where you literally, this is why you traded for him for the NBA Finals. This is why he is here. And if he's not able to go, that is a major red flag that whatever he's dealing with, either it's worse than they've led us to believe, or there has been some type of setback that they're not being completely or even partially transparent about. And that has the potential to derail what has been an amazing season for this team.
Yeah, you would like to think he'll be back for game one. You'd like to think that he's going to spend this week off, working out, ramping up 5-on-5, getting himself completely prepared to be in that starting lineup for game one. But we really don't know. I mean, he does walk normally. He's at shoot around. It's not like he's got a boot on. He's way past that. We haven't really seen him work out in about a week. We didn't see him work out at all in Indianapolis. Not to say he didn't, but by the time we were allowed him to shoot around, he was sitting there and he was done. So we don't really know what his status is in terms of like, oh, he's close. We keep hearing he's close. And I just think talking to a doctor about this injury, there was 3 kinds of strains. And I think the most severe was 4 to 6 weeks. But I think what I keep hearing, it was the second most, which was 2 to 3 weeks. And now we're at 4. And like Sherrod said, the fact they're up 3-0, it's like, why are we going to throw him out there for 12 minutes in a high-level game? Indiana's desperate, and he hasn't done a whole bunch of 5-on-5. That's foolish. Now you have a whole period of time practice where he can get his 3-on-3s in, then get on his 5-on-5 and be up to par, although he's not going to be in great basketball shape. It doesn't happen until you play in games. But at least he'll be ready to play maybe 20 minutes in game one. And then you get 2 days off, I believe, before game 2, and then he can ramp up even more and be probably 100% by then. So I don't think that it's a situation where I don't think he's going to play in the finals, but I do think it's getting to the point like, okay, y'all, he's got to ramp up here. Like, this is the time he needs to be doing sprints and figuring it out. If not, it is a worse injury than we were told. We have not been told what kind of strain it is or whether it's a third degree strain, second degree, or first degree strain or whatever. I think the second degree is what it is, but it could be a third one, which means he probably wouldn't be back at all, or maybe late in the series. But I just think, quite honestly, that he is going to be ready for game one.
Before we close out, let's look at the bench because obviously Jaylen and Jayson, Drew and Derek, they can only do so much. But Pritchard has had his moments of strong play throughout the playoffs. Sam Hauser, not necessarily. Brissett, Tillman, and Cornette have been a roller coaster of a ride. So, one, who do you guys think is a reserve that needs to have a big impact in the NBA Finals?
Who you got, Gary?
I don't know what to make of Hauser, but he was terrible in the NBA. He was 1 for 14 from the 3-point line in the Indiana series. He averaged less than 2 points. You know, he made some mistakes in terms of committing some bad fouls. He got beat on defense. You know, maybe it was just a bad stretch for him, right? But you need somebody to stretch the floor. You need his shooting out there. And if you're going 1 for 14, it could be mental out there because he is just not even close to some of these wide open looks he's getting, and he makes everything so much easier for the Celtics when he's knocking down those 3-point shots. So I'm kind of intrigued as to what they're going to do with him. Will they give Brissett more playing time? I mean, he actually played 21 minutes in this series, and he was decent. He was a plus when he was on the floor. Didn't score much, but was able to be active defensively. Get 3 steals in his 21 minutes. But Hauser's a guy that I'm concerned about because this is kind of what happened in playoff seasons, postseasons past, where he just kind of disappears and he's not a factor. And he's not a defender or plus rebounder where, well, if he's not hitting shots, he can make other plays. I mean, he was able to get 8 rebounds. So, 8 defensive rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, but still not nearly enough. He scored 7 points in the series in 59 minutes. Like, that's just, and I said, a lot of those open looks. Yes, in game 4, he hit one and he hit a layup. I'm sorry, he got fouled and laid up in a couple of free throws, but he's just been awful. And I don't know whether it's mental, schematic, where the defenses are, but he's got to start knocking down shots because he could really open up this offense if he could be a factor in the final.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Gary. It has to be Hauser. He's the one guy on that second unit that you really, when you look at what they did up to this point, it's bad. I mean, others have had moments where they looked really good, and others times they struggle. Hauser has not had any good looking moments in the postseason up to this point. Certainly not in the conference finals against Indiana. And I don't think it was a schematic thing that Indiana did because, again, as Gary pointed out, he had a lot of great looks. Tatum and Brown have the ability to force defenses and suck them in like a black hole and kick it out to him for wide open or lightly contested shots that he just simply did not knock down. It was mental. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that what he was going through was a mental block that he has to get over. And the thing about guys like Sam Hauser is that they're too good to stay in a slump forever. The law of averages tells you that they're going to go through a stretch where they're just not going to miss. Where just like he's going through now, where a stretch where he can't make a shot. So I expect him to be a significant impact performer in the finals because the law of averages says so. He's a guy that, and when all is said and done, he's going to be shooting anywhere from high 30s, low 40s from 3-point range. And for that to happen, he's probably going to have to be shooting on the north side of 50% for most of the finals, which is something that he has the ability to do, not only because of his talent, but also because of the talent around him and their ability to create opportunities for him to knock down those type of shots. So I anticipate a big NBA Finals series from Sam Hauser, and just simply because he's due, and he's too good a shooter not to have a stretch like that.
Well, by Tuesday evening, we'll know exactly who the Celtics will be. Well, we might know who the Celtics will be playing in the NBA
She
Finals.
already got them swept.
I know. I was like, wait a minute.
Ant-Man's like, hold up.
Anything is possible.
All I know is I got an email from the Timberwolves saying that a limited number of Game 5 tickets are on sale. So they're ready. They expect that dub in the
Okay.
deal. I'm like, I was just like, oh, really? Okay. There's a refund with that, right?
Look.
I'm just saying.
Right. That's a good point, actually. But until then, this has been a great kind of wrapping up of the series, the playoffs so far for the Celtics. Obviously, they've been doing a great run. So, of course, we're all looking forward to the NBA Finals. And we appreciate you guys sticking around with us here on the Big Three NBA podcast. So when we find out who they're playing, we'll be back. We'll debrief. We'll preview the NBA Finals formally. But until then, Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lewis, and thank you for listening.